Okay. Well, welcome to the Grolier, to this wonderful bookstore and the wonderful tradition of readings here. It's wonderful to be standing up here as an introducer, as I have done before, and as I have done as a reader and as a customer. So please don't forget to buy books from this wonderful independent bookstore, including books by our two readers. Here is one. And here is what I would say about Paige. Is the mic okay?
We can't hear you.
Oh,
I think that's probably for recording.
okay. I'm going to have to, how are we going to do this, James? Do I have to do this?
No, you can just stand as you were.
But I'm not loud enough.
It's really only for the.
Okay, but you can't hear me.
No, I can hear you now. When you speak up, we can.
Okay, I will speak up. Poets, readers, don't forget, you have to speak up. All right, I shall speak up. Leavings and fragments, remnants, parts, the scattered. These are some of the terms that appear in Paige Hill Starzinger's first full-length poetry collection to describe what she's up to in the book, which was chosen by Lynn Emanuel for the Barrow Street Poetry Prize in 2013. It was preceded by the chapbook Unsheltered, chosen by Mary Jo Bang for another contest, and followed by the 2020 book that I suspect she'll be reading from tonight, and which I'll get to in a minute. But I want to start with Vestigial. The fragments, vestiges, are many and varied and come to us at a rapid pace. Observations of the natural world, arcane historical facts, contemporary news events introduced by headlines, etymologies that reveal a close relationship with the dictionary. Paige combines these elements into collages that force us to make connections between the past and the present, the small and the large, the troubled world and the private one, a challenge and a delight for the reader. All of these elements appear in Paige's recent book, Vortex Street, but at a slowed down pace. It's the second movement, Andante, in a minor key. With more white space, more fluid movement on the page, the poems delve more deeply as loss becomes central. Loss of the possibility of a child and diminishment of the body that might have housed a child. Loss of parents, first to dementia, then to death, and of the childhood house that housed them. Not just fragments now, but fault, flaw, erosion. Paige's words again. But the losses aren't just personal. Ever collaging, expanding, connecting the body to the natural world, from tectonic plates to microbes, to the world of the news, rape, violence, immigrants, detainees, ecological loss. Where does grief go when it can't escape? Paige asks. The poems themselves answer. Deep and wide, near and far, into the words and music of these lovely poems. Please welcome Paige Hill Starzinger.
Thank you, Martha. Martha is probably the best reader, one of the best readers one can find. Thank you so much for paying such close attention. I want to thank James for orchestrating this incredible bookstore, orchestrating the poetry, the poets. And I want to thank Carol and her family for the stewardship of this bookstore, this very extraordinary bookstore. And thank you for coming to this bookstore. I'm going to start with a poem about family called Helianthus. Helianthus is the genus name for sunflowers. Helianthus. The farmer's market has sunflowers again. It's another July, and bees scramble over the sticky chocolate centers. My mother says, "Hi, sweets," but she died 2 years ago. I see her clearly, wearing a drip-dry striped boy's shirt, looking straight at me. There's something she's waiting for. I can't figure out what it is, never could. Young sunflowers track the sun until they mature. Then they are stuck, facing east. I wonder when memory is not a haunting, when disappointment is not unlearned. The florets spiral, a Fibonacci sequence, each number the sum of the two preceding. A generation is supposed to be better than the last, but my father once wondered, staring at a portrait of his father, if sons always disappoint. I can't remember what I said next, but it wasn't true. In this next poem, there are 2 quotes from the Odyssey. One's near the beginning and one slipped in near the end without attribution. I think you'll recognize it. Home. It was just a normal February day. Flurries, a little sleet. I'd reached the point in the Odyssey when Calypso lets Odysseus sail home. He'd rather be mortal and die than live away from Ithaca. That's what he says. But we know it's not true exactly, unless he feels most at home when he is killing his fellow countrymen, as Emily Wilson suggests. The sun went down, Homer warns, and brought the darkness on. My phone bursts with pop-ups from CNN about a special military operation underway in Ukraine. The phrase, a Trojan horse for war. A million flee, many stay, though surely they'll die. A child on a train clutches a handful of soil from her backyard in Kyiv. It was such a beautiful home, a woman says about Kharkiv. So many parks and cinema. Surrounding the city, the wind splits and flows over grasses like water. Icy blue the stalks, flowering yellow, wetting its whirring wings in tireless brine. Fescue the grain, feathery tips flipping all these centuries, carried that way, then this. And some years, David and I go in the off season when it's quiet and it's hot to the island of St. John. And I wrote 2 of these poems, the next 2 poems there. Constellation. I look up at the stars, hard and glittering, as if chipped from a giant's horrible glimmering throne. No moon, not for nights, just wind scraping over scrub, rustling with animals I can only guess about. Iguana, deer, stray dog. I save bread to scatter, but then who am I to imagine this is a good idea? I am a visitor, and look what the others did. Slave barracks, sugar plantation, part of a cobblestone road. I walk down the driveway, take a photo of a beat up green Jeep with half doors, and the owner, a local, asks, what am I doing? It's a great old Jeep, I say, but what am I doing? Crux. I turn away and watch sailboats and kestrels through salty binoculars, sharpening the focus, trying to get closer, but I blur my sight as if acuity isn't really the point. These beaches remind me of the past, yet sand has a way of eroding into sea or gathering into barrier islands. Even the crux, a constellation navigators have long trusted will slowly uncross itself and open as parallel lines. Today, you took me on a ride up a high, narrow road with crumbling guardrails, but I wanted to return so you could go on. My view is already precipitous. I'd rather stand by the window, pretend things are still. And then there's a longer poem in Vortex Street, and I'm going to read two parts out of it. The title is Specula, and that's the Latin word for mirror. It's also used in a gynecological exam. So it dilates. Specula. To the man pressing the sonogram over my ovary, who is saying it's completely shut down. It is still part of my body. It is alive. It is mine. I want to know, is it velvety if you hold it? Is it ghostly white? Is it fragrant? Does it hum? Magnificent glands, corrugated, grooved, and furrowed. This is where my children would have sprung if you could time lapse back. Alea, meaning dice, as in aleatoric music. Mozart selected a precise sequence of notes based on throwing a handful. Beauties we are, we say beautiful, estradiol in our vaginas, and wind-swept fires in our veins. And from the middle of the poem, what of need when you want less? When you think you want less? When the self is less, you think? Look how my bones, osteoporosis, my pelvis, endometriosis, my ribs, fractious. This is the house, my only home. I own no other. I lease one car. This is my body, the beauty, yes, I abandoned to feed on more expensive taste. A cage to decorate became a cage to pain. This structure, this cage, if I could build a cage instead. How do you disinherit yourself? Normal faults create space when the ground cracks, but as one tectonic plate forces itself on another, this is a thrust fault. I am full of faults. Natural mistakes, they lie until uncovered. This next poem is called My Learning Path, and they're different voices. They're voices teaching you how to sell from a digital module I took when I worked for cosmetic companies. They're ads that taught you what a woman is that I saw as a girl when I was growing up, and possibly people have seen them on YouTube. And then it ends with a narrator conjuring a child who has no given gender quite on purpose. It's my learning path. Today, my digital learning module says, it's crucial that your presence is optimized. I can see that. My eyes are bleary. I'm baffled and blown over by learning how to pull a qualified consumer through the purchase funnel. Remember Mary Tyler Moore tossing her Tam O'Shanter up into the city lights, lit sky at 7th and Nicolette in a double-breasted peacoat? That huge smile. An unwitting extra, just plain old Hazel Frederick, exits a department store in cat-eye glasses, forever caught between words in the final credits. Today, the username or password for my ongoing mail server is incorrect. I am bringing content to life, but there's an issue. I mean, opportunity, time decay. Shelley Hack, leaping out of a cream convertible Rolls Royce and striding into, was it Cafe Carlisle? Bobby Short on piano? First time a woman wore pants in a fragrance ad, 1973. I must now abandon the period. Once a pause, now unnecessarily harsh. Snap my chat. Thanks for joining me today as we disrupt. Today, at Celine's runway show in Paris, the designer who knows what real women want played a soundtrack of far-off city traffic and children's voices as if getting dropped off at school. Need a trouser suit? A reporter asks. On every seat, a quote from artist Dan Graham. I want to show that our bodies are bound to the world, whether we like it or not. Today, I'd say we like it. They are. Citrus, cyclamen, tarragon, oak moss, and rose. And I will name you my child, and you shall exist like a character in a fictive world so true that we touch. Velvet petaled starry jasmine, climbing mossy stone walls at the edge of a forest of unknown hearts. The wind catching tendrils, birds' feathers, dried weeds, lifting them up in circles. No script, no credits, no. And in this next poem, near the end is Aix-en-Provence, a town in the south of France. My unborn child says to me, you are a mouse in a dove's coat. An apron with hands, that's what I didn't want to be, I replied. It's taken you a long time to catch on. But is it a race? Time grew tired waiting. He's sexist. You're binary. I don't think I was strategic. No, you wanted to be free of the past, untethered, to step into a stream like your mother, walk one narrow slice of water after another, mayflies rising, a world constantly changing, shimmering. You felt this was New York. That sounds right. See, I knew you before you saw the stream. I lay inside you when you curled within your mother. I was one of your last 2 eggs. You saw me on the sonogram, remember? I look at my right thumbnail, misshapen from picking at cuticles. I can't see this child now, but for the voice. We come accidentally and try to find our place. I have been hungry before in the south of France, the cypress, the picnics, the boys' lips, simply too animal. Unprotected we were, but everything else receded, a blaze of heat pushing outward, filling me, probably a late period. So I went to his doctor and he recommended a wash, just from the pharmacy, nothing much. Yes, I recall, X comes from Latin for water. You have never been ready. I was pursuing the boy. And then you didn't trust your body again. I think it scared me. You worry too much about the past. Stop dwelling there. Where did you get so bossy? I mean, so definitive. I got it from you, dear. And then how are we on time? I was going to do one more. Okay. As maple trunks thaw, I was pushed out of my mother's body one April, cold and wet, in the 5th season of the year, a measure of frost and mud. It was past the last sap boil, more amber than gold. I was a dial suspended in a chunk of glass, like ice, my initials carved into it. Today, I click into a digital video conference. Faces populate, time snags, and pixels sputter. So someone looks like a Francis Bacon portrait, enlarged head leaking over his chest. We share 35% of our DNA with daffodils, 98% with chimps. Our cars burn dinosaur bones, and the oxygen we breathe in is an excretion of ancient bacteria. Is it any wonder we romanticize a row of tall pines set against empty sky, the sunset, a family, different sizes and shapes, calling each other as a wind rumbles through them? A song like a cello might make before it was crafted into an instrument. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Paige, for that lovely, lovely reading. In an early poem, David Baker cites a friend who complained about too much nature in the poet's work. David responds, "A poem about nature contains anything but." And of course, poems are made of words, not trees or birds, or, as in his most recent book, whales. The words are many. David has published 13 books of poems and a great deal of prose. The words have been appreciated. He's won too many honors to list, but they include fellowships and awards from the NEA, the Guggenheim, the Poetry Society of America. More importantly, the words are vital, compelling, essential, and lyrical, often subtly metrical, looping, repeating, echoing. These are poems we listen to. And yet, so compelling are David's evocations of nature that it's sometimes difficult to think you haven't actually been there. And then he takes you where you never thought to go. To rewrite his own line, a poem about nature by David Baker contains everything and. It may begin with tree frogs, cicadas in an elm tree, a single stalk of mullein, but it doesn't stop there. David holds on to one perception until it yields another and another, sometimes through reading and research, increasingly by associating, combining, and connecting. To be in nature is to be nature. This is especially true of his most recent book, Whale Fall. The territory has expanded to include the whole earth, from its prehistory to its precarious future. Despite the fact, or perhaps because of the fact, that we're destroying the natural world of which we're a part, technique has expanded too. Juxtaposition, collage, the blurring of boundaries, everything and. In the gloriously collaged title poem, the whale keeps company with the hummingbird and gnats, ecological destruction with illness and loss, disturbing news and scientific report with quiet lyric and lament. The book is elegy, writ large and writ small, but it is also celebration. Here is the shortest poem in the book, Extinction. When you are gone, they will read your footprints if they still read, as they might a poem about love, wandering in circles, here and there obscured, washed out in places by weather, sudden landslide. Keep walking, pilgrim. This is your great tale. Please welcome David Baker and his beautiful, urgent tale.
I'm not going to look up because I'll see all those and I won't be able to talk. Sorry, I should have found this one. Six notes. Come down to us. Come down with your song, little wren. The world is in pieces. We must not say so. In the dark hours, in the nearest branches, I hear you thrum. The deer come to die beside the creek. Mud, the color of walnut stain, reek and runoff from the new development there beyond the wood. Rib and skull. No jawbone. It makes a soundless scream. I hope for peace when I walk here sometimes in the dark. If not peace, clarity. If not clarity, at least a place to breathe. Else, I'll scream too. Come down, little dove, far above the bay. I hear you in a thirsty palm or up beyond the rocks. A windy reed of song. Blue sun, blue cloud above the sweeping bay. Sometimes we have to say so. I don't know how. A man, a boy, an anger with no tongue took his automatic rifle to school today. The report we hear, discharge, echo, is the sound of sorrow, reloading. No matter where we walk, we hear it call. Little wing, little creek, little bay, dark hour. Come down with your beaks of mourning and blood. So as of today at 3 o'clock this afternoon, 9,867 people in this country died of gun violence this year. And we remember Monday. So a poem for that. Don't know what to do about that. It's a joy nonetheless to be with you and to be in this famous, wonderful, lucky, great hole in the wall of a poetry bookstore, and to see you and to feel the gratitude that I feel for you coming out tonight to sit with me and with Paige and with Martha and with James in this little room and sing our songs and listen to our songs. I keep thinking, well, that's what we do about it. I don't know. I'm very grateful to James for having us here. And Martha's introductions are better than almost anybody else's criticism of contemporary poetry. There's not a lot of really good criticism of contemporary poetry, though there are a couple of people in this room who are masters of that art as well. But I'm very grateful to Martha. So I got to change the mood just for a second here. Today is opening day of baseball season, and the Cardinal game is not quite over, and I didn't see it. I'm a Cardinals fan. Oh, I got to show you something. Opening day of baseball. This is, I've been carrying this around all week. Opening day, 1968, Yankee Stadium. Marianne Moore throws out the pitcher, throws out the first pitch. What's that? You got to see that. Have you guys ever seen this picture? This is Marianne Moore in her tricorn hat at Yankee Stadium. I mean, she's getting ready to let one fly. That's Marianne Moore on opening day. You got to love it. I like to mark dates. April 1st, in a couple of, that's National Poetry Month beginning. About them apples. What do you think about that? It's also National Sports Eye Injury Month. Just, I mean, the baseball thing, right? It's also National Face Protection Month. I think that must go with the sports eye injury. It's also National Kite Month, National Florida Tomato Month, National Guitar Month, National Irritable Bowel Syndrome Month. Didn't make that one up. So there we are, us poets in good company. So I'm going to read a poem or two from Whale Fall. But I want to read that first one that I read, the birds, is a new poem, and I want to read a couple of new poems that I haven't read before. This is the first poem for Whale Fall, the little poem. I don't have a lot of good news in the poems apparently tonight. This one is about Glacier, where Paige and I have gone to walk. Glacier called Mýrdalsjökull in Iceland, and it's going away fast. The telling. Down from such heights and up from depths beyond measure, the old ice, slowly, now quicker than the stones can hold it, knows its path like the one note of a bird flown beyond us. In ages since we've forgotten, the wind holds us in its heavy sleeves. So sorry now, at the pace of our elders' tongues down the valley, it is going. The clocks have stopped. It is happy to be finished. Almost there, singing the song no one heard the last time either, when the rains began. Yeah, okay. So, all right, this one is about, in the background, undocumented children who for years we kept at a place in Oklahoma called Fort Sill, behind barbed wire in tents. We did that. Do that. Fort Sill's where we put Japanese American people during World War II for months, for years, behind barbed wire. Citizens or not, same place, Fort Sill, where we put Native American people, indigenous people during the Indian Wars, so 1860s, 1870s, same place. We did that. So the poem is just a love poem that I'm going to read. It's called Hold Hands. And the two lovers are in lover heaven. You know, they're alone in the bedroom. It's night and everything is wonderful. And the poem probably asks if there's any place at all where we are not culpable, even though we wish we were. Hold hands. We were in the trees, white curtains opened, your shoulders in my hands, then your knees drew upward, rain like petals there, rain like breeze. Now the birds were in the trees, 2 stories up, our window, where blowing leaves were level with our sheets. We were in the street. We were holding hands as hands were holding us. What hands there were where we were, in trees, our children there, as songbirds were. The hands where we were in the trees were holding us there, where we were in the street. Please the rain, to please the petals in the breeze, like rain. Please to draw your hair along my hands. Your hands are holding us. Lines along the window lane are holding us like songs, as now the songs, the sirens in the streets. Lines along the window lane, your hair in feathers where the children are, whose curtains singing, whose hands are holding us, who cry like birds. Hold hands. The birds are in the trees. The birds, our children there in cages, singing in the trees. I have been writing Martha nailed me. Nature poems ever since I guess I've been writing poems where I live. I have been for years going out with environmental science buddies of mine to do field work with them. The tree people and the frog people and the bug people and the stone people and the water people and the grass. I go out with all of them as they do testing and experiments and learn from these brilliant biologists what's happening. And it finally dawned on me, write about them. You know, so I've got 2 or 3 poems I want to try out. These are quite new, but these are about, you know, going out with my buddies to do the work that they do. Field notes by a slender path. I held a bird in my hand. No. It was a game, a child's game. No, my bird friend said, when he unstrung the mist net where one bird hung mid-flight between scrub and sumac by the slender path. Like this. He placed it so in my open palm, then closed my fingers up. Female yellow warbler, he said, and he barely turned her leg to read the band there, while I, how can I say this, felt our hearts in one gray breath. Edge juvenile. In the game, as hard as you can, you clap your hands, clench one fist, throttle your wrist. Maybe your friend presses your thumb so that it stings, goes numb, goes ash. The net is blowing. It's delicate as a soft cloud. You count to 10. Now loosen, one by one, your fingers. You know the rest. We had this little game when we were kids. There are different names for it. Maybe you know this, how to do this. We called it Ghost in the Hand. You do that, and you do that really hard for a while, and you cut the blood off really hard for a while until it kind of, and your buddy rubs and it turns really pale. And you go, oh, this is, you know, they're like 9 years old. This is so cool. This is freaky. And then you let go like that. And out of your hand, you feel blood return and the ghost rise. Like that bird. It was like that bird. Letting that bird go. Here's my newest poem. You okay? Yeah. This one I've been working on for the past 2 or 3 weeks. It's not done, but at some point you got to read them. And there's a thing that's just happened in my state that is in this one. This is a different science buddy in me. 6 glasses of water. The creek's running down cold from the high hills. We spend a good hour turning over stones. Each one, a crawdad, quick shiner, slick moss, a shadow exposed. We count what's under. Willow hangs its hair over the cool pool. Roots hang there too, knots, shimmery copies. We float tennis balls down 100 feet to gauge the drop rate of the downflow, where the riffles, where the sandbars, where the slow places go. How slow. When the governor held his presser, 2 weeks after the derailed train spilled a toxic mess 3 counties over, he walked to the sink and filled 6 glasses of bright water from the tap. Neighbors have been scared. Children sickened, coughing. Is it asthma? Will it get worse? No one's coming to help us. Pollution plumes float beyond a burning. The high pines stand out against the weird yellow sky. Or do we imagine that? My friend Andy says farms dips a vial for trace pesticides. The creek fidgets and spins off at an eddy. We skim a quiet surface for algae, for striders, seed husks, nothings like these. The governor takes a sip. He takes 2. You've seen that in the news? We're so proud. It's still burning. I'll read one more poem. I should have found it. Here we go. I'll read one more poem and thank you in advance again for coming out on a Thursday night to this beautiful bookstore where there's merchandise to take home. Please do. And what a pleasure to read with Paige and hear Paige's poems. She's my sweetie, but we don't get to do that very often, to read together, and it's a real treat to be able to do that. Again, I thank James and thank Martha. So this is one last of the poems about running around with my biology buddies. This one's magic. With this thing in this, that's magic. I learned to do a thing that I can't believe. Do you have a pen? Yeah.
No, sure. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Got to have a prop with this one. This is called Late Georgic in a Field in Ohio. Take my hand, she said, and I lay my palm on top of her hand, and she knelt a little. I knelt beside her, and she waved as with a wand the small light she held like a pencil, tracing in the humming air a phosphorescent J. We were in clover, we were in Jimson, in the field, we were in sedge grasses, wet with the birthing of mid-evening. I have been a biologist all my life, she said, and I love this more than anything. J, in the deep blue air, J, and the red-winged blackbirds chipped from the cattails around the pond, and a jet glided homebound or outbound in the low horizon. J, she wrote, we wrote, and then a blink answered from its cave of curled grasses, and another came toward us in a funny sort of dancing rise and fall, and I realized we were speaking, all of us, firefly, an awkward human couple, not a couple. And the wonder was not that they answered us. The wonder was, it dawned on us finally to ask. Thank you. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. On Page.
Let's give the poets another round of applause. Have some books for sale. The poets will be signing books. Thank you for coming, everybody. If you could all please move the chairs against the wall.
Don't move. What beautiful introductions. You really got Page.
Yeah.